Okay, so we're going to begin joint placement, and I'm just going to show you guys my method. There's no really correct way to do this, although there are, no, I guess I should say there's no one correct way to do this, but there's not necessarily, but that doesn't mean that there's not wrong ways to do it. So you can make it hard on yourself. So I'm going to go to the front view. This guy's really big. And first thing I'm going to do is add my character to a layer. Delete that layer, which I don't need. Rename this to model. I'm going to set that to reference, so I can't select it. And then I need to, probably should have done this beforehand, but I'm going to rename him something shorter. _geo or geometry. That's just my personal naming convention. And actually, I don't like to start with capital letters. I like to use camel case, the same way that I did naming attributes. Okay, so with that done, I can start creating joints. So I'm going to put a skeleton joint tool. I'm going to zoom in on his pelvis, and the first joint that I'm going to place is the root joint. The entire hierarchy of joints will be parented to this joint. I like to make sure it's dead center of the model, so I'll turn the grid on. After I've made sure the model is perfectly symmetrical, well, not necessarily perfectly symmetrical, but its center is perfectly on the center of the scene. And then I'll hold down X, and I'll just add a joint in on the center line about where I feel like the pelvis should be. Okay. Then I like to go up the spine. Now if I hold down Shift, it's going to make sure they all stay in a perfect line. So I'll hold down Shift. And I'm not really thinking too hard at this point. Like, I'll make sure to see if I have an even disbursement of joints up the spine. Okay, so not necessarily, it depends on your character. So right now I've just added a few, and I can go back and change this later. Okay, then I want to add in the collarbone. I'm not holding down Shift this time, so that I can go off the center. Added in his collarbone. Not exactly sure that's where he's at, because he has all this other stuff on there, but I think that's probably close. And I'm going to add the shoulder. Wrong button. I'm going to add the elbow. And for this, I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to hold down Shift again for the wrist, and then Shift one more time for the hand. And I'm going to add all these straight out. Now, I want to rotate this down into place. Ideally, the characters will be, in my opinion, ideally the characters would be in T-pose and the arms would be straight out, and it would make placement of those joints easier. But it's not a terrible deal if they're not. Okay. I'm not too concerned on hinge joints, say for like the elbow, that they they need, well, let's see. They don't have to be center of the mass because they only bend one direction. Now, if it were to bend this direction also, then I would have to make sure the joint was over here somewhere. So all it has to do is hinge. You just want to make sure that it's in the right location up and down the arm. And the same for the wrist, except you want it to be a little bit better. Actually, you want it to be pretty good. And the shoulder does that. Yes, the shoulder does the twisting of the upper arm. So we're going to position this. I'm mainly looking at the wrist right now. Okay, now this one I'm just using as a template actually. So I'm going to press up and I can pick walk up this skeleton and I can add it to a layer. I'm going to set it to template so I can reference it. Turn on, make sure X-ray joints is on. And now I'm going to go back to my translate tool again by pressing Y. And this time I know my joints are where they need to be. And so I can hold down V and snap to those joints. And then what it will do is when it creates the joint, it will have a good rotate or joint orientation. Okay, so right now my joints are really hard to see, so what we can do is we can go to display, animation, joint size, and I'm going to turn this up, something I can see better. Okay, I'm going to hide my mesh, and this time with my joint tool I'm just going to hold down V. See, am I thinking straight? Maybe this has to be on reference. I can't remember for sure. Let me try that again. Yeah. So I had to have my previous bones referenced, not templated. I told you guys wrong. So with that done, I can go through and I can click on top of all these joints and then press enter, and now they actually are placed correctly. I can see, now to see what I'm talking about as far as the joint orientation goes, if we look at the shoulder where I rotated the arm down, these lines, the selected lines that go through the center of the joint here, represents the joint orientation. You can see that it's different than the original ones, which are the black set of lines that would be pointing straight out of the shoulder. Now we want that to be accurate because we go to display, transform display, local rotation axes. And select, I only did it for my root joint. Okay, so undo that. Display, transform display, local rotation axes. And actually, you don't even have to turn it on. If you just have your translate tool select active, you can see that X points down the chain. Okay, now on this backwards joint, the first one that I made, X is pointing down chain, but that's only because I rotated the joint. So if I rotate this back up,